Hello, everyone. I'm Douglas Blaine. I'm glad to be here sharing with you about my Capstone project. I chose the topic one. It's a plan of action for adopting the US digital dollar. And the company I chose is mid-sized bank, First Horizon Bank, with 80 billion AUM around and holding 2 million clients, including consumers, commercial business, financial institutions, and wealth management clients. Here in the presentation, you can see more about the bank. And the problem here is how to implement, how to develop, how to change all the environment, regulatory and then the system wise to attend and to adopt the digital dollar to the bank. So making available 24/7 to the clients and providing immediately transactions between senders and receivers. So here we go with more about this. And the good thing is about the environment in the US is 96% of US households, they are banked. So meaning that it's a clear and let's say a friendly environment for banking. First Horizon is one of the players. And as I said, with 2 million clients, it's less than 1% of the total population in the US. However, on the other hand, having a strong bank environment that facilitates, of course, and also First Horizon shows 68% of active clients in mobile banking and online banking, meaning that their clients are above the average in the USA of digital banking friendly clients if you compare with 48%. So that shows how First Horizon is investing in digitalization in the bank. So some of the risks and challenges that First Horizon will face, one of them is the technology integration, as we assume that their systems, their existing systems are not yet developed and prepared for this transition and for this integration with the digital currency. This is a real challenge, but as a mid-sized bank, put them in a better, let's say, better situation compared with larger banks that for sure have a strong and more complex systems and infrastructure environment, right? So regulatory compliance, that's a big challenge for them to implement fast and to have a rapid response in terms of implement and avoiding any fines or any negative media or any reputation risk for regulatory and compliance is one of course the main challenge. Education and training for employees and clients, and also cybersecurity that's very concerned for all this new environment that will face First Horizon Bank will be a high target for threats in cybersecurity. We'll see how to mitigate in a few. Reputation, trust management, right? There is not much space to fail in this project. Any failure could cost a lot for the bank if the clients don't see a good traction in terms of integration with this new setup. High setup costs, of course, that's a big concern because it's a big investment that I estimate in between $6 and $8 million, including training, system developments, marketing, and training, all the infrastructure as well. And I can see that as smaller is the company, as more affected in terms of cost, meaning that for large companies, so the cost effect impact is reduced, right? Cross-border payments, if this is the case in the future for foreign transactions, this would be a big challenge to deal with different time zones and coordinate counterparties, privacy, protection, and regulations for the several jurisdictions and so forth. Next, so the biggest challenge on my perspective is Americans' concern about privacy. So you can see in this slide, 76% of Americans, they are concerned about privacy, and they select to not support central bank to issue a digital currency. So 76% pretty much are very concerned about this initiative, and they say that government should not issue a central bank digital currency because it would potentially allow the government to monitor what people buy and potentially control how they spend their money. This shows that 3 in 4 Americans, they don't support central bank digital currency implementation. In my write-up, I also mentioned about what happened in Brazil with Pix. If you have a chance, take a look, because Pix is a fintech developed and implemented by Brazilian Central Bank, and all the financial institutions adopt and change the environment to provide instant payments for all the clients and banking people. So what happened, there was a big concern about regulations, and PIX was initially very well accepted and adopted. However, in the beginning of this year, 2025, government announced a new package of regulations on PIX, making PIX monitoring transactions above 5,000, so increasing the monitoring of those transactions above this threshold. And then clients were big concerned about privacy, and government intended to cross over with tax and fiscal feelings, right? Most of the concern was raised by self-employed people. And so what happened is that the government stepped back because a lot of protests in social media as well was very strong, and then ended up with the government stepping back and not going forward with these regulations. This also can be a case here, as you can see, for non-supporters because of privacy concern. How to mitigate the risk? So infrastructure, I suggest a gradual rollout with testing pilot, regulatory uncertainty as you compliance team, legal updates, staff education, train employees for this new setup, cybersecurity threats. So how to mitigate is zero trust architecture and AI detection. Market mediation, focus on value-added service, digital advisory. Another one that's low digital adoption, education incentives, hybrid support. And finally, high initial cost, how to mitigate investment yields from new sources of revenue, meaning that potential new sources of revenue can be implemented and take advantage of this central bank digital currency implementation. Here, I'm showing a proposed action in some phases. Initial assessment, 0 to 3 months. Phase 2 would be the infrastructure modernization, and phase 3, pilot programs and partnership, about between 6 and 12 months. And phase 4, compliance and risk management. So that's an ongoing initiative. And finally, phase 5, full-scale implementation. This is a SWOT analysis as requested. So the strengths would be established digital infrastructure, a strong customer trust, and experience with cloud-based solution. On the opposite, the weaknesses, potential gaps in blockchain expertise, dependence on legacy system, and limited experience with the digital currency specific operations. That's of course for the First Horizon Bank. Opportunities, early adopter advantage, expansion into new markets, and development of new revenue streams. Threats would be rapid fintech advancements, regulatory certainties, and clients adoption, and lastly, cybersecurity risk. Here's some reference. That's it for today. So I hope that I could share a little bit about my project, and thanks for all